Hello, everyone. My name is Christy Arneson, the Wyoming 4D Director, and today I'm joined by our amazing marketing professionals, Dana Volney with Volney Ventures and Steve Jackson with Jackson Productions. We are excited to share Wyoming's experience as it relates to the OCSC Digital Marketing Grant. Before I jump in, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank OCSC for recognizing the state's need for new and more innovative outreach. I'm going to provide a brief introduction and some background information and then turn it over to Dana and Steve. Quickly, I think it's important to point out that the Wyoming Child Support Program began an outreach and marketing push in 2016 in an effort to update the image of the Child Support Program, create uniformity of that brand across the state, educate public on all of our services, and increase our declining caseload. As you can see from this slide, I don't believe it was unique to Wyoming, but definitely something we wanted to try to address. And finally, we were doing it in order to increase partner outreach and collaboration. The timing of the digital marketing grant couldn't have been better, as at this time, Wyoming was in the beginning stages of phase 2 of its larger outreach plan, which focused on continued education and partner outreach. Wyoming identified this grant as an avenue to expand on methods that we had already had in place, but more excitingly, explore digital marketing methods that had been outside of our reach. Wyoming's high-level plan with this grant was to build on our current campaign by utilizing the following interventions. First was a website redesign utilizing search engine optimization and Google Analytics. Second was focused on outreach and marketing to professional partners, specifically private attorneys. This is important because in Wyoming, not all child support cases are automatically referred to or transferred to the program, so relationships with attorneys is essential. The third intervention focused on expanding streaming services and those platforms to include things such as Hulu, Sling, and increasing our presence on YouTube. We built on the experience we already had developed and the research we had already done. We identified and built a relationship with our marketing professionals. We knew our caseload demographics. We knew a user-friendly website was critical. We knew numerous professionals network using platforms such as LinkedIn and local professional organizations. And we knew more and more people were foregoing cable television in favor of some kind of streaming service. As such, our primary objectives with this grant were to further educate on our services and promote a positive image of the program, to enhance partner outreach and ensure citizens were reached and served effectively, and finally, to increase the number of new applications that were coming into the program. So it is with great pleasure that I get to pass this presentation on to Dana and Steve, who will take you on a deeper dive into each intervention and the numbers behind them. Dana, Steve?
Thank you, Christy. I appreciate it. Yeah, just to go off of what Christy said, we were really excited about getting this started. Intervention 1 was where we started with the website redesign. I'm going to scroll back here just a bit. So with the website redesign, we had started off with the website being located on the state's main website. While it did present good information, it was also kind of buried inside the remainder of the website. So it was great to be able to kind of focus a website that was purely dedicated to the child support program. So we started off by a complete redesign, a separate location, which allowed us to really fine-tune our own layout. And it still links to other things on the state's website, but this allowed us to do multiple things. One, it allowed us to promote it a little bit better on Facebook. We had a very long URL, and so it was great to be able to shorten that to what you see in the top left-hand corner of childsupport.wyo.gov. Before it was a very, very long one. And we were also able to, which allowed us to promote on Facebook a little bit better with a shorter website. It was easy to remember, easy to link to. We really focused on making sure this website had a good search engine optimization, or SEO, making sure there was a lot of good header tags, meaning there's a lot of well-worded headers, that the text was relevant with what those headers said. Google looks very intricately into that stuff and wants to make sure that it's very connected and that it's relevant information. And if you just have things that are not connected correctly, Google begins to dock you on that. And then with Google Analytics, we were able to monitor how well we were doing, who was visiting us, where they were visiting us from, to get a better understanding of our demographic. We had a 34% bounce rate, which is great. Between about 20 and 30, between about 25 and 40, is where it's considered excellent to average. And we've always kind of fell within that average. So it's been absolutely wonderful to see that the website obviously is doing its job. People are finding the things they need to find, that they are staying on the website to learn more information, and then go off to be able to apply. One of the things that we really used as a benchmark to understand how well we were connecting with our customers was our Contact Us form. With Google Analytics, you have a decent amount of information, but the problem with that is it's somewhat subjective. Someone might have been on there. They might have left their computer on a little bit longer. They might have just been searching through, didn't really find what they wanted, and there's a lot of guesswork. Obviously, when it comes down to Contact Us information, we know that they contacted us. We have valid information. Every single one of our Contact Us that have entered have been valid people that were really concerned or had questions. So it was great to see that it was actually very useful, that people were finding it easily, and we had a steady engagement growth throughout the entire life of it. And we ended up getting about 350 Contact Us inquiries we've had so far since the beginning of the launch of the website up until now. So we're really excited about how that's grown. With Intervention 2, we went off and focused a little bit more on the professionals, as Christy was mentioning. And so we did a heavy campaign in the Wyoming Bar magazine called The Wyoming Lawyer. And we had a few ads that ran in there, which just gave a little bit more. It was more of an awareness campaign is what we were doing. We weren't necessarily sure what we were going to get from it, but we just felt that there was many lawyers who might have known a little bit about us, but didn't know exactly everything that we could offer. And so we felt we had a large group of people we could still reach out to say, hey, we're here to help you. We're here to help assist with you and your client, and where I'm sure a lot of them didn't know. So we really focused on those magazines, basic awareness campaign, did a LinkedIn ads, and Dana will talk a little bit more about that. Geo-targeting ads, so around law firms and other professional organizations. We made sure to target so that those ads would be retargeted to people on their phones and various places if they noticed that they were in that location. So we also created a website landing page that a lot of the LinkedIn ads pointed to. And so kind of just gave a basic description. We were so lucky to have one of the Wyoming attorneys be willing to give a testimonial about how they've used the Wyoming Child Support Program and the benefits that have come from that. It was a great situation. We were very thankful. And so we had a short video of her speaking about the benefits of Wyoming Child Support Program and how that's helped her and her client. And then, again, back to the information video. That was kind of part of the information video. We discussed about the benefits for professional organization and attorneys as well, what we could offer them in the means of child support. And we look at really doing a lot more future marketing with them, more one-on-one campaigns, maybe written, maybe more flyers, print material to actually hand out to attorneys now that they get a general understanding of who we are, make a little bit further connection to let them know that we're available so they can refer other clients if they deem it appropriate. And maybe some more digital campaigns focused on that. We are actually still running some ads in the Wyoming Lawyer right now. So that's really exciting, and we want to continue to focus on that group as well. We're going to talk about Intervention 3, where we talk about what we did with our streaming services, but I'm going to have Dana finish or start that off for us.
Yeah, so Intervention 3, after we had a great website built that was user-friendly and easy to navigate, it was time to focus on our primary demographic, which is males and females in Wyoming, aged 20 to 40 is who we target as our primary. And our Intervention 3, while the pandemic hit and COVID is awful, it was serendipitous for us in a way because our intervention was February 15th to May 15th. So that was the height of people being quarantined at home and flattening the curve. So we got a lot more mileage, I think, out of our marketing dollars and our medias that we use than maybe we normally would have. So that was a little bit of a benefit. For Sling, we spent $52,500, and we had 2 commercials running on Sling. And for Wyoming, which is a state of around 600,000 people, that got us pretty far for those 90 days. It ran for the full 90 days. And then with Hulu, that did the best for us. We spent $100,000 on Hulu with the same 2 commercials. And we got a lot of feedback, or for the 3 months of the 2 commercials. And we got a lot of feedback just generally of people coming up to us and saying how they saw our ad and what were we doing. And it's because everybody was stuck at home as well. And Hulu in Wyoming is very popular. So that is a media we would not have normally been able to do, because Hulu, you have to spend at least $35,000 to get on that platform, which normally is out of our reach. So this grant was a big benefit to us to really be able to saturate our primary demographic for 3 months. So we were very thankful for that. Yelp, we ended up spending around $300 on. And this grant allowed us to experiment in a way we had not been able to do before. Out of all of these, for us in our area, Yelp did the worst. So we actually did not receive any leads, any feedback, any clicks from that one. So one of our learning situations is that, well, Yelp was not great for us. And then YouTube, we spent around $23,000 on YouTube, and we ran both commercials for around 2 months. And that one was awesome for us. Again, people are at home. I think YouTube is definitely up and coming. People are using it to stream. More shows are available. The content is growing exponentially on YouTube. And that was awesome for us. And our rate of completion was very high, and the actual number escapes me right now, but people were actually engaged in the ad and not skipping it. So we were higher than the industry norm on that one. Facebook, we spent around $5,000 on that, and we ran as our commercials, and they were clickable onto our website, which again, then they could navigate to get their questions answered or contact us form, and that was good as well. We did target the whole state on that one. So Spectrum, we had 2 campaigns. One of them was a little over $23,000, and that one we geo-targeted our primary demographic along with geofencing specific areas like schools in the state and Walmart and those kinds of areas, so that we could kind of be more specific with our frequency that they would see our ads. And that worked really good for us as well. And we did our commercials on that one, and we also had static ads, which Steve will go into in a little bit, and you can see our time and money savings ads that were on there. They were pretty straightforward. Our second spend on Spectrum was almost $32,000, and that one was on streaming devices only. So we used our 2 commercials, and Spectrum allowed us to be on platforms like Roku and Xbox and other TV channels that we didn't have to buy a specific spend for that area. So we could span quite a bit of platforms that we didn't have access to before. And we got feedback that a lot of people saw ads on those devices too. So that was very helpful for us. So as a whole, our intervention 3 was one of our biggest spends, and I think did really well for us.
Yeah, thanks, Dana. Yeah, very true. It was a great experience to work with that, and again, it was just the timing could not have been more to our benefit. You know, unfortunately for the world, not great, but to our benefit because it was just perfect timing to show these ads. So we had 2 video ads, and we had 3 million impressions of what we had purchased. So it we got a few extra, probably about 40 or so extra, 40,000, 46,000. That we were able to use. It showed that there was about 80% viewed in living room devices, so Apple TVs, regular TVs that have Hulu, and there was a 20% split between PC and mobile devices. Those are for all the living room devices. Usually those you can't skip those ads. So they're going to be 100% watching or 100% watched anyway. Now for PC, you can on many times skip those ads. So the industry standard is 68%, and we had a 97% viewing rate. So we were really excited that people were actually watching it. Again, we used a lot of local people in these ads visually, so there was a lot of recognition. So that I think that could have been part of the draw, that they recognized the places around town. And so I think it probably got them excited to feel like it really was homegrown. And so we decided to focus on this one too. We focused on time and money saving services on both the video and these still ads. And so these are the ones that went into Spectrum. Again, we focused very heavily on time and money saving services. And that was partly due to this grant. And we were very thankful for the people involved here, because a lot of the research that they had done showed that the concept of money savings, as well as time savings, but definitely money savings, was the big thing that drew people in to want to click more about the ad. So we took that data and began to build ads based off of that. And you can kind of see with the impressions and the click-through rates on these that actually did probably hold true, especially the banner ads on the bottom, those bottom two banner ads there. That was a 0.21 click-through rate, which is a very, very decent for that, at least according to Spectrum. That was good for them. And so we got a lot of impressions off of that. We actually accidentally, Spectrum ran an ad that was for our Intervention 2, which was focused on, as you can see on the right-hand side, looking for child support experts, was geared more towards them, toward the Wyoming professionals. And we ended up deciding just to run it for the rest of them because they gave it to us for free because they did it by accident, and just kind of see if maybe people were concerned about, I want an expert to be there to help me with my child support. It did okay, but not nearly as good, and there could be multiple reasons why. There probably weren't as many impressions. Also, the way that they ran it, there could have been some mistakes. But we can see that this click-through rate wasn't high at a 0.07% CTR. So that probably isn't the best way to go. Maybe we probably should just stick with the professionals and the attorneys on that particular ad. It makes more sense. And then with Google, when we did Google, we ran the video as well. Both of those videos we ran. But we also did some Google search ads. So when you type in certain keywords, key phrases, you often see at the very top that there is an ad paid for link. So we did a few of those depending on if they said child support, if they're Wyoming Child Support or pay support and various other keywords, these things would pop up. We found that these were actually very successful. And I think one of the lessons learned, which we'll probably talk about later too, is that Hulu is great. Hulu is a wonderful platform. Hulu is also a very expensive platform. And so we have to be very careful about where we spend our money. And we think YouTube and Google are probably the best routes for that particular, any kind of campaign that we're doing on a regular basis. And part of that intervention was we created just a landing page on our website that most of these Google ads that the banner that you see there on the left, so many time and money saving services banner on our website, if you clicked on that, that went to our landing page. We decided to make all of our ads link to just our main web page, and a couple of reasons why. We felt our website was, the navigation on it was really good. It would be easy to find things, so there wouldn't be any major confusion for a customer if they came onto that website. Secondly, we knew that each of these platforms would be tracking how many clicks got to our website, and then with Google Analytics, we can kind of monitor that as well. So we knew that we could send them to the landing page. That would be an easy trackable thing, but we felt that we would just take them to the main page, have all the information there, and then we would be able to kind of monitor how things were going. This was not the case for the professional organizations in Intervention 2, where we took them directly to the landing page, mainly because there was a very, very specific targeted message and demographic we were going for with the professional organizations and the attorneys in the state. So we decided to go that route. But again, very successful campaign with this. We had a lot of unique users, which we're about to talk about. But let's go over real quick the survey that our evaluators did as part of this grant. It was both on the homepage that we had as well as on the portal. So the portal for the child support to be, or the Wyoming Child Support Program, to be able to actually access your account is a different location than the actual marketing page. But you can access all that portal stuff from the marketing page. They're interconnected. So we had this survey on both ends. And as you can see, there was a decent amount of people who actually took the survey. So that was great. About a total, it's about a total of 282 is what we had. So that was phenomenal. And we did notice that the campaign, I think, was actually working great. As you can see on the right-hand side, Hulu had a 55 of them said that they saw it. So that's 48%. YouTube was 30. Google Ads was 28. So the things that we really put a lot of effort into really did pay off. And like, again, Hulu's very expensive, but man, does it give great coverage. And it was a wonderful opportunity to use. So I think we might use it down the road at some point in time for smaller campaigns, but definitely probably not an everyday scenario. But YouTube and Google, very cost effective and obviously very effective just in general. As you can see, it was probably some of the higher ranked viewing options that people were able to catch our ads on. So, and then I just want to go quickly over the numbers on the website. So if you can see, they're broken up into Intervention 1, Intervention 2, and Intervention 3. We broke it up that when we first started Intervention 1, that was when the website was launched. So unique users and page views was 3543 for the 3 months of the intervention. Obviously, the website goes on way past just those 3 months. So we tracked it. Obviously, we continue to track it. And we noticed that for the 5 months before Intervention 2 started, we had about 6,000. During Intervention 2, it went up to about 25,000 for that 6.5 months that we calculated. The reason there's a little bit of a side note there is because the website was actually, the homepage was actually on some portals here in the state at each of the Wyoming Child Support Program locations, that they just had the website up. Well, the Google Analytics was tracking that, and they noticed that there was a lot of high bounce rate. Excuse me. That's because the web page was up and no one was doing anything with it. It was just showing. So it showed that there was a lot of page views when in fact there probably was not. So we estimated that, just from our calculations, that there was probably about 25,000, even though Google Analytics was showing 33,000, or probably about closer to 34,000. So we just kind of took the average of that. Same thing with Intervention 3, which is where we had the Hulu campaign. There was a little bit of an overlap before we were able to fix the problem with the portals. But as you can see, with the 6 months that we analyzed Intervention 2, it's about the same number as when we had just the 3 months with Intervention 3. The number of Contact Us submissions, again, one of our benchmarks, was 133 just for those 3 months, as to where for the Intervention 2, the entirety of it, we were 118. So again, we took into consideration that, COVID-19 was part of the reason why people were clicking so much. And so it might have been a little bit lower, but even if we estimated that and took some off, we estimated we took 15 off or something like that per month, we were still well above what we had done in Intervention 2. So it really goes to show that I think this Intervention 3 was an effective campaign, that video ads, that print ads on the right platform really do make a difference. They really do move the needle. And so we've just been really excited to watch this continue to grow. And I'm going to give it back over to Christy, where she's going to kind of talk about and recap some of the stuff we learned on our enrollment growth. Christy?
Thank you, Steve. Yes, as you remember in the introduction, I identified new applications as one of our benchmarks and one of our goals and objectives of this grant. So this slide here is the indicator of where we landed as far as new online applications. And so these are brand new applications, someone that's not been with the program before. And we are pleased by this. This was done by our evaluators, who's the Wyoming Survey and Analysis Center. And they are a group that lives within the University of Wyoming here in our state. So it's great for us to have this data. I think as we talk about Intervention 3 quite a bit, it is again highlighted on this slide. Because while we did see some growth over time in our new online applications, what we really saw was during Intervention 3 a really pretty drastic increase of the new online applications. Now, again, as we've mentioned, some of that could correlate to the pandemic that we had been experiencing. But I do think a lot has to do with those streaming services and those platforms that we used and that we really saturated out to our demographic. And I think it's one thing to say, it is serendipitous, but with the pandemic, I'm actually pretty happy and glad that we were doing our streaming services intervention, because if in fact it was reaching people that truly did need our services, then I think we even got a bigger bang for our buck on this intervention. Not only did we reach people, but people that might have needed us not more than ever because of the pandemic were able to hopefully get our services and are in and hopefully maybe a better spot today because of it. And so Dana and Steve, I think that's all I needed to talk about on new applications. I think it just shows that we did have some positive results overall from our interventions and from this grant as far as seeing those applications. And I think we're going to move into and kind of talk to you all about our knowledge gained and our lessons learned.
Yes, very true. Thank you, Christy. So some of the things that we learned, analytics are definitely needed on a website. And not only just to monitor what's going on in just your normal traffic, but to monitor irregularities as well. We saw a spike in our bounce rate up to like 78%, which usually, as I was talking about before, usually signifies something's like seriously wrong or your website's broken or there's some other issues that you need to look into. And like I said, we noticed that there were office computers that were linking to our website, and they were going to it first, and it was showing that rate. So what you have to do is you have to go in and tell Google, you need to avoid these computers or this location or these IP addresses. And so don't mark these as potential customers so that Google understands that they shouldn't be looking at that. And so we noticed that was a major problem. Same thing with the website plugins. There was some, it dropped down to 7% at one point in time, which you would think was like, wow, it's amazing. Everybody's doing great. But usually when you're below 20, when you get 20, maybe get into 15s and 13s, there's probably obviously another problem that's going on. And we noticed that there was a plugin that was double recording page visits. So it would show that they actually lasted longer than they did. So we had to fix that. So again, analytics are great, not just for monitoring who's visiting, but also monitoring problems on your website. And so it was very effective for us. So social media engagement was also very important. We were able, and Dana, maybe you want to speak on this one a little bit more.
Yeah, so Facebook has been a great instrument for us. And I know some people might be scared to use Facebook because people are online warriors and can comment as they want, but you can actually, take out swear words that people can't use. You can limit comments so that you have to approve them. And there's ways to manage that. And we have prided ourselves on really building a good Facebook page that people can comment on and that we get back to. So we think that that's one of our strengths, and we continued that during these interventions. So we do get customer complaints on Facebook, as you would imagine. But what happens is that I'm the one that manages the Facebook page. I have one contact. I have Christy and one other contact that actually deals with these complaints. So we have streamlined that process where I fill them in on what's going on so they can expect the call. And then online, I comment back under Wyoming Child Support Program and tell them we'd love to talk more or whatever the case may be, and send them to a direct line specific person. And sometimes we'll get comments back that, it wasn't for me, it was a situation, blah, 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 or we actually then can help them. And a case that we did have during the intervention is that a lady commented that she was owed like $20,000, 27 or something like that, and had never received it and was really mad. So I sent that to Christy and Jody actually, who is my main contact that I send people to, researched it and actually reached out to the lady. The lady never reached out to her and had found that money that was sitting there because the lady never gave us an updated address and was indeed owed that money. And Jody was able to get her that money. Now, there was no thank you on Facebook or no praise or anything, which is fine, but we can use that as an example, and we could still use that as a general testimonial to what we're doing on Facebook. That has helped a lot of people. So just opening up that line of communication, because if you're not going to communicate with people on a platform like that, then there's not a ton of point to have it, because a lot of people will comment and will reach out. We get a lot of direct messages on Facebook, and then we can guide them as well. So we're very active on that site, which is our main social media that we use. So that story can definitely be used as a win. And then for things like Hulu, again, Steve has mentioned it's very expensive to use Hulu, and Sling. And Sling, with that cost, with the $52,000, it was 1.5 million impressions over the 3 months. I forgot to mention that before. And our YouTube and Google ads, we are going to continue to use those because of what we found during Intervention 3. So with this outreach budget we have this year, we are going to highlight our commercials on YouTube and Google, and then use Sling and Hulu for special campaigns. So that was a great lesson for us to learn. And then with articles, we didn't touch on that too much during Intervention 3. We have local news sites. One of them in Cheyenne is called Cap City News. And we put out a couple of specialty articles during Intervention 3 on that website, as long as some digital ads that sent people to our main homepage. And I really value articles when we can give really good information and expound on it. So instead of a little caption or a 5-worded tagline, we can actually go into the depths of, is your child graduating? Well, here's what you need to do. Are they turning 18? This is what you need to do. And then people can share those articles, and it leads to our webpage, and it's more in depth. So we have also valued those as well.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, absolutely. It's been a great experience. And I just kind of want to say, and Christy, you can add as well, and it's been a great learning experience. It really hits home the phrase, it takes a village, because we learned so much from the grant, the other grantees. It was an amazing experience, and continues to be an amazing experience as we learn more from them. And just in general, working together to learn how these platforms can be so effective. And what's the best route? I mean, again, we wouldn't have been able to do some of these things, especially with Hulu, if it wasn't for the fact that this grant was available. And we learned a lot about what is effective, what is doable, what's not doable, where we can add things, where we can subtract things. So it's been a great learning experience for us as marketers on one side, but, and I won't speak for Christy, she can speak for herself on this about what her experience was for child support. If you had anything else to add, Christy, or what your thoughts were.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Dana. Yes, I think we, as not just Dana and Steve in the marketing world, but in the program world, there's a lot of knowledge gained and lessons learned. This is the first time in our outreach campaign that we've had evaluators involved. And while that was interesting, it was actually, I think, very valuable for us. They brought to us the idea of utilizing surveys. We did it in Intervention 3. And I think the knowledge gained from those surveys was really wonderful. And what we took away as a program, and I think as an outreach committee altogether, was that we should be looking to utilize surveys in the future. So I think that's a lesson learned and a next step for us as we continue down our outreach path, is to figure out how to utilize surveys in order to really get true feedback from our customers, because I think that's the only way we really know and understand, is when we truly hear from them. And then just a few other things on lessons learned. I know we mentioned LinkedIn a few times, and LinkedIn was really unsuccessful for us. And so our initial knowledge gained and lessons learned was we will no longer use LinkedIn. It wasn't worth our time nor our money. However, interestingly enough, I was on another webinar in which California was presenting, and California had huge success with LinkedIn. So what we're doing right now is Dana's actually reaching out to their marketing person in California to really just share an understanding of why maybe they were successful, why we weren't. And it could just be demographic. It could be something related to California is very large, Wyoming is not. But we do want to do our due diligence before we completely shut that platform out. But from this intervention, it really was not fruitful for us. And then just a few other things is that we talked a lot about the platforms and the specifics of the interventions, but I think one of the biggest things, and I think we knew this going into the grant, but I think it really was magnified, is that through all the interventions, one of the biggest and most important pieces was communication and established work protocols. I think those really have helped us get to the effective interventions that we saw here and led to those new applications. You know, we had frequently scheduled meetings. We do a lot with each other via Google Hangout, and that's our team here at the program level with Dana and Steve. And there's defined work assignments and ongoing communication. So I think that's a very important piece of this as well, outside of the technical pieces and the platform. And then finally, one of the biggest things for me is, like Dana and Steve have mentioned, this grant really gave Wyoming the opportunity to be bold. I think we were bold when we started an outreach campaign, but as far as being able to utilize some of these platforms like Hulu, that's bold. That's a lot of money. That's, you're not sure what's going to happen with it. And this grant really allowed us to do that. And so a lesson learned from me is trying to identify places going forward where we can continue to be bold and not break the bank. So overall, I would say we thank OCSC very much for this grant, for putting this grant out there. Thank you very much to Michelle and Melody for coordinating it, and to all the other states who I think we're going to continue to learn from for a very long time. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.